we are analyzing a way to help the operationalization of the five forces framework of Professor Porter. We already discussed about the structure that is the first step to understanding the value system. And now we move in the marketing area, always taking into consideration that the way in which we see and we look at all the components of the forces in the framework is the value system. So the process that take value from suppliers to customers. And we collapsed in this chain, in this sum of value chains, as Porter explained, we collapse also relevant insights from barriers of entry and substitute components. And if you see here, there is the distribution, the way in which distribution is set up in the industry. And this is a variable that Professor Porter insert in the barriers of entry part of the framework, but we think that distribution being open or saturated is an important insight also for the present dynamic competition within the industry. So we had this because we think it's relevant also for the industry structure as well, and we will see how. But starting from the growth variable to be analyzed, growth in the industry can be slow or rapid. And the point of a slow growth is not only a matter of customer adoption, but it's a matter of market share war. In the moment in which the industry is not growing to add revenue to the company has to steal or to conquer market share from other companies. So the level of competition increases suddenly because you have to lower price, you have to introduce new products, you have to bid with others to gain customer. On the other side, if the industry is growing, you don't need to compete with others very much. You just have to keep the speed of adoption and try to gather new customer within the industry and within your company. So we have here, for example, if you look at watching pay TV, you see that the number of time spent watching TV is decreasing. And so pay TV business is getting more competitive. On the other side, if you are in the streaming industry, thanks to better structure, thanks to better broadbands, thanks to changing customers' habits, we are watching more streaming. And so if you are in the streaming business, being video, audio, whatsoever, you have, let's say, the speed, the rapid growth on your side. But growth is not the only thing that is affecting the marketing area of our framework. So the second point is how wealth is your customer. For wealth, we means that if you're selling to someone who is not very focused on the price is paying, in that case, you can, let's say, be better in adding in having a price that is not discounted or having the right price to get the right part of your value, sharing the value with the customers. And the reason why this happens is because the customer is not so willing to fight for having additional value through price discounts. The other case in marketing is a cost fraction. So if you are selling to someone a product that has a low cost fraction, he is not very interested in spending too much time to check the price or to deal new pricing agreement if it's a small amount of money vis-a-vis all the things that the customer is buying. If you are selling something to a customer and that sale is huge in terms of its balance or its total amount of supplies bought, in that case, he will focus a lot on trying to lower that cost because it's huge for him. So these two forces, how much is wealthy your customer and how much is the cost fraction, or how much is important the sale for him. will affect the industry structure. And then we have the output differentiation. The output differentiation means that your product is or is not different from your competitor. When there is no differentiation, product becomes a commodity, and so you have to play on pricing or service. If your product is very different, you create insulation from others. And in this case, you can, let's say, raise the price or take into consideration your competition because you are different from the others. In this case, here we see 3 premium German cars, and you can see how much little by little during times premium cars are getting commoditized. They're more and more similar, and that's not something that is mandatory because in the same industry there is a car that is Ferrari, who is always very differentiating from the others. You can spot a Ferrari on the street, not because you see the brand, but because you see the design, the engine, rumor, the way in which the car behave on the street. So it's different by definition. And differentiation, saying it with Warren Buffett, is creating a moat that is defending your company against the competition. You have something that is keeping you insulated from the others, and the way in which Mr. Buffett said, I want sharks in the moat. So I want a very strong competitive defense against the competition. So let's give a look, given the importance of being differentiated, on which are the main dimensions in which you should analyze how differentiation is achieved in your industry, to use in an operative way the Porter framework. And the first one is standard. So if you have the same product, the same components, the same service of other competitors, then suppliers will choose putting all these competitors and you on the same level and just decide based on price. The second point is input. So if your industry product is not important in terms of quality for the buyer product or service, your power is decreasing. If it is important, if what you sell, for example, affect the quality of life or the quality of the final product your customer is producing, or it's affecting a very important moment, in all these cases, being you a seller to a business or to a consumer, your important will be more important or less important. If your product is not very important, customer will not spend too much time understanding if you are very really different from the others. Switching cost. Switching cost is the way in which once you have the customer with you, you can create some cost in changing the supplier. So if I buy from you and I want to change and buy from another competitors of you, I will have to pay in terms of cost because I have to change something, or I just will have to relearn how to work with your product or with the competitor's product, or I will have to spend time doing things and so on and so forth. So there is a cost in terms of money or in terms of time and effort that the customer has to afford in order to change the product that is, let's say, giving you a bit of help in keeping your customer with you, but it's not really differentiating. It's more, let's say, imposing a tax if the customer want to change. Usually it's not a good way to differentiate the product or to lock in your customer. And then we have, let's say, the option and the analysis of Mr. Porter on channels. Channels are those companies that are channeling your product versus the final customer. So it's the channel is this one, is the one you sell through in order to reach your customer. In that case, the terms of differentiation is basically the same apart one point. One point that is important when the wholesaler can in some way influence the final customers. So if consumers are influenced by the wholesale, which is their counterpart when they do the deal, when they buy, and you are not there, in that case, the wholesaler can have a huge power in dealing with their suppliers. It has you, because they can put yourself, you and others on the same level again, because they can influence then your final customer, say, okay, let's buy this product or that product. Then one of the important point in terms of differentiation is also the input. So if someone who is supplying you is giving you an important input that is differentiating your product vis-a-vis the others, then in that case, that supplier has a very important role. And so you have to understand how much the input differentiation is high or low in your industry to understand how much the supplier's system is grabbing some of the value from your product and from the value you supply to final customers. For example, if you think or in the beginning of the computer industry, Intel or Microsoft were key inputs for the standard compatible personal computer. And so everyone needs to have them on their standard personal computer. And so Microsoft and Intel made a lot of money, and many standard personal computer manufacturer just exit the market. And then there is the point of distribution. The point of distribution is for sure relevant when there is someone who wants to enter, because if I want to enter an industry and I need to access to the distribution and distribution is saturated, I cannot enter the industry. But the same thing is right and is true when you are already in the industry. In that case, for example, a distribution channel is very saturated, probably is avoiding to introduce new products, probably is asking you to pay to access or to have shelf space or to access the distribution, and probably is asking to you to, let's say, cooperate, to have some partnership, to have some co-branding activity. So in the moment in which customers are all focused, are concentrated in some saturated distribution channel, in that case, the distribution wholesaler has a lot of power. And this power is important both for existing companies within the industry, but also, and especially, as Porter say, on the newcomers. Now we have to consider another area, that is production. In the next video, we will analyze how the production structure of the industry and of the single players of the industry can affect the industry forcing the Porter 5 forces framework.